Another thing that people should know is you need money. And if you don't have money, it's going to be hard for you to start up a business. So, I was very fortunate that I had relatively high paying positions.
Welcome back to the Money Seed Podcast. My guest today is Robert Brill. Robert is the CEO and founder of Brill Media. Robert, welcome to the show.
Gabe, thanks for having me.
Robert, I understand that you are a marketing expert. You run your own company, which is a marketing agency. Tell us a little bit more about Brill Media and what does Brill Media do?
So businesses work with Brill Media so they can grow and scale their company. We do advertising, which is specifically buying messaging space on places like Facebook and TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, local news and sports sites, Hulu, etc., with the goal of usually generating leads or generating sales for clients.
So one of the descriptions I saw on your website, it states white label media buying.
Right.
So is that what that means? Like you're buying ad space on behalf of your clients?
Yeah. So the white label component can also be described as outsourced component. A lot of our clients are actually other agencies. So when you think of advertising, there's two general breakouts. There's the creative people, the people who create Just Do It, the wordsmiths, the people who produce commercials who make really compelling visuals. And then there's the people, those are the creative people. And then there's the people like me and the team that we've built, which is a math team, a data team, the team that understands how the algorithms work with the goal of generating sales. Because just by creating a commercial, no one sees it. You have to actually buy advertising space to get people to see the ad, whether it's on Facebook and etc. And our goal is to understand the methods and practices that are in tune right now with the marketplace that aligned with generating sales.
So tell me a little bit more about your backstory. How did you get into this space?
Yeah, so I've worked in advertising for 20 years. Luckily, 2 weeks out of college, I got a job at one of the largest multinational ad agencies in the world, Universal McCann. Even prior to that, I worked at Universal Music, no relation there, the Universals. And so when I started at Universal Music while I was still in college, it was social content posting. And but it was called guerrilla marketing because social media hadn't been really formed as a descriptive term yet. And then in 2013, I saw an opportunity, and I thought, well, as of 2013, I had spent a decade in advertising. I understood how large corporations wield dollars to drive sales, and I wanted to bring that opportunity to small and mid-sized businesses. And where we found success is partnering up with other agencies who do creative work really well. We do media buying really well. We pair up the work and we go to market together.
It sounds like you made that transition from being a full-time W-2 employee working for someone else, and now you are a full-time entrepreneur.
Yeah.
How did that switch happen? Did it happen quickly, or was it a transition where you had a side gig for a while alongside your full-time job? How did that come about?
It was exceptionally messy. So I so there's a few things here. I was fortunate to ascend in the digital advertising business when the industry was ascending as well, when there was a transition from traditional advertising to digital advertising. So that was a good. I was the right person in the right moment. And I had worked at a company, and around that time there was an evolution to the world of advertising. And I'll describe that evolution to say that if you've ever bought Facebook ads, how you go into a platform, you set up targeting parameters, you say you want to target people 25 to 54 in Los Angeles who have these particular interests, and you want to spend $20 a day or $1,000 a day. That mechanism, that capability was being developed around 2008, 2009, 2010. So I was in this really strong position to lead a group of people to figure out how to buy with those tools. And I learned the practice of digital self-service ad buying. And at that time, there weren't a lot of people doing this. I had to prove every step of the way how it works and why it works, and make analogies and comparisons so people could understand it. And basically in 2013, there was this opportunity. I thought, okay, am I going to continue to work in advertising, or am I not going to continue to work in advertising and have all the other qualifiers? I wanted to make the money I wanted to make. I wanted to live life on my terms. I didn't want to have to commute. I wanted the authority and the cachet that I had at some of my previous jobs. And basically, I decided in October 2013 to start a business, and I quickly chickened out. It was glorious. I'd been thinking about this idea for maybe a year, but I didn't really know what to do with it. It was coming up. People were saying, "Robert, you're pretty smart at this. I wouldn't be surprised if you start a business." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I started thinking about it. I started this business, chickened out, took a full-time job, and I just let it linger. I had the legal business entity created in October of 2013. The next job I took, I wasn't that good at it. It wasn't like I became sort of like unemployable. Over that year and 2 months, I realized like I don't like doing this anymore. I don't want to work for other people. My commute was an hour and a half each way. It was like horrible. The agency is still doing really great. They're a great organization. I wasn't the right fit for it. And during like the second like third of my the second third of me working there, I started like thinking about this business again. And the best way I can describe it, it's an itch you have to scratch. Like, it doesn't go away. You can suppress it, but at the end of the day, you kind of just have to see if I had to prove to myself whether or not I could do it. So anyway, I got fired. So I got fired, and then I started doing this full time, and I had money saved up, and I was like, all right, let's hope I don't lose too much money. And I made all the mistakes you could possibly make, and I'll stop there. But it's an itch you have to scratch.
So maybe give us some tips and lessons learned along the way for people who are thinking about that transition, right? Because everyone has that idea, right? I want to start my own business. I'm going to do my own thing. What are some of the things people have to plan for and think about to make sure that goes off well?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of like there's two kind of ways of looking at it, in my opinion. Number one, and these are not mutually exclusive, but they could work together. They could be separate. Depends on the individual. Number one, you got to know yourself. You got to know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. Just generally speaking, like, what are you going to enjoy doing? Because eventually it's going to get really hard and really tough, and you're going to hate it. So what's the thing you're going to keep doing even when you hate it, right? What are you passionate about? That's number one. Number two, one thing that I learned that took me about 2.5 years to learn is, where do I have the most competitive advantage? What do I know that other people don't know? Or where do I have an unfair advantage compared to other people? And my lesson there was, I started a social media marketing company, very relatively low barriers to entry. I didn't have any special experience or skill there. I started an influencer marketing company. Again, I got a little bit of traction, but it wasn't my zone of genius, right? Another way of describing it is, what's your zone of genius? What are you the best at? So the most competitive thing, the highest barrier to entry, that the experience that I had was ad buying, going on different ad buying platforms, buying advertising space, and ensuring that clients get leads and sales. That's why I knew how to do the best, especially having a decade and then more of corporate media buying experience. So figure out your zone of genius, and chances are that's where you should be going with your business. Now, how do you figure out your zone of genius? Well, for a lot of people, you've worked in the business. I mean, I worked in the business for a decade. How did I learn advertising? I did it for a decade, and I learned from people who are far smarter than me, far more effective, far more time in the business, and they taught me. So that's great. Another thing that people should know is, you need money. And if you don't have money, it's going to be hard for you to start up a business. So, I was very fortunate that I had relatively high paying positions. And I was fortunate that people trusted me as a W-2 employee. They trusted me to do good work. And while I didn't There was 5 years where I'm pretty sure I didn't get a raise, but I got bonuses. At some point I got bonuses. But, some people are like, I want a raise, and they get upset when they don't get a raise and they move on. So I had some strategic awareness that, stay where you're valued, stay where there's cachet, stay, work where I'm learning something, and cash that in later. I've always known that in my career. I've stayed at many places, not many, I didn't have that many jobs, but the jobs that I did have, there were other people who were like, all right, I got to get that next salary bump. I stayed years longer than I could have because I wanted to gain the experience. Gaining the experience then pays out exponentially as you get older in your career. So I was lucky to have that awareness that worked, at least for me. So you got to have money in the bank at the end of the day. And I went through half my savings over the course of time that I was trying to figure out my 4 different businesses: influencer marketing, social media marketing, digital advertising, consultation. I wanted to be an influencer. And the 5th one is what stuck, which is our ad buying business. So I'll stop there. But yeah, I mean, the work of becoming an entrepreneur is a journey of self reflection, and you need really great people around you. If you don't have good people around you, I think that's gonna set off your. Sorry, I know I said stop, and I'm continuing to go, but I think that having the right people around you will often be the difference between you taking the right risks and you taking the wrong risks, or not taking the risks at all because you're scared.
It sounds like you went through a series of trial and error, right? You tried this business, didn't work. You tried number 2, number 3.
Yeah.
How much time did you give it before you said, okay, you know what? I give it everything I got. It's not working out. It's not growing the way I thought. It's time to try something new.
They're like a year, but here's the thing. They weren't, they weren't like, okay, year 1, it didn't take me 4 years to try out 4 businesses. There was overlap, because part of the thing that I strongly believe is a core insight here is that whatever a person does, whether it's testing new tools, learning new capabilities, which I do routinely, buying courses, whatever the case is, should have more than one benefit to you. So with the businesses that I created, they were very complementary. Influencer marketing was part of advertising. Like, that's how people regarded it at the time. I think it may have changed a little bit since then, but I was also an influencer. So I was both sides of the equation. So I learned a few things from both. Digital ad buying consultation or implementation helped me to meet new people that ultimately resulted in more business when I started doing ad buying. So it wasn't like I'm going to sell cars and I'm going to be a crypto expert and I'm going to be a real estate expert. 3 very different things. These were all very complementary. So I'd say I probably gave each one of them about a year, but I was also doing other things at the same time. And I think that's how I failed fast. And I gave it time. And the woman I was dating is now my wife. And one of the best, most important partnerships a person has in business is who your partner is, who you're married to. And you got to make a good decision there.
Absolutely. So about the lifestyle, maybe what are some of the biggest differences between the lifestyle of a full-time employee versus an entrepreneur?
The difference is I worked hard as an employee. I mean, I was very passionate. I gave it my all. When I felt I was taken care of, like I had that cachet, I made the money I wanted, relatively speaking, or I could make the money I wanted. And I had like the levels of authority that I wanted within the group of people I worked with. Like, I worked really hard because I enjoyed it. In fact, one of the places I worked, I thought I was going to retire from, and it didn't work out that way. And so the difference, I thought I worked hard then. Nowhere near as hard as am I working now as an entrepreneur. I'm working way harder as an entrepreneur. Because every little, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Like, either you get it or it will get you. You don't know how to make a website. Either you have money or you got to figure out WordPress. I figured out WordPress. Not everything. I'm not like an expert in WordPress, but like functionally, you got to know how to do it. Email doesn't work. There was a moment in time where I had like 4 different email addresses or 5. And I kept, which was horrible. I would be sending emails from one email address, but somehow what was going on in my inbox, it was switching to another email. I was like, this is horrendous. Tech support. I gotta be tech support and figure that out. And there's all these different tools and things you got to tinker with. It never ends. The first big campaign that we got, I'm running the campaign in our ad buying platforms. I'm doing my account management. I'm cashing the check. I'm optimizing every day. I'm doing all the things, janitor and architect. There were times when morning till night, just working. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is unsustainable. Clearly, it's time to hire people. I've never worked harder as an entrepreneur because, look, I think one of the things that drives me professionally is I don't think I'd ever become a CEO. I don't think my career path was ever going to get me into CEO. And frankly, if I didn't start this business, I don't know if I'd still be working in advertising, which is a profession I absolutely thoroughly love. So what I was looking for, one of the things that motivated me, I didn't realize this at the time, but I realized it over time. I want to rise to the magnitude of responsibility. I want bigger challenges. I want challenges that have greater depth. I want to learn new things. I want to be a better business person. And a lot of that was the reason why I created this business, because I wasn't going to get that opportunity working for someone else. Because for someone else, I was just a guy that had a set of roles and had to perform. And I wanted more for that. So yeah, I think you got to know yourself. What are you actually looking for in starting a business?
It looks like you guys have grown quite well. I believe your team now is over 10 people.
20.
How smooth was that growth? Or did you have like a breakout year where just a lot of things went right?
Yeah. So we're at 20 people. And there was a year, basically over a summer, we tripled our staff. And then from then that summer, we doubled our staff again and then added some more. But the key breakout was when we tripled our staff over the course of a summer, no one was happy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the quality of the work. I wasn't happy with the workflow of the team. The people that I had hired were not happy. And one of the most senior person I hired quit after 6 months because it like, she was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, dang, what's actually happening here? And what's actually happening is I had no standard operating procedure, which is like I had like knocked me across the face. Not a thing that was even in my peripheral vision. I had no idea what this thing was. Definitely not the reason why I went into business. It took us, and this is a tangential learning. It's often harder to figure out the problem than to figure out the solution to the problem. It took us 6 months to figure out what the problem was, and then 3 months to actually figure out the solution, and then a few more months to implement it. Once we implemented standard operating procedure, a few things happened. The people who were with us knew when their jobs started and stopped, which made their level of satisfaction in the job far more interesting. They were satisfied. They were like, all right, I know I'm doing good at this job. They stay with us longer. You create tribal knowledge inside the business, the systems that kind of work, and people start to teach each other the best practices. You hire more people, the work becomes better, clients are happier, revenue grows, and you double again. So we're actually going through another round of standard operating procedure updates or implementation to facilitate that yet another clearing for growth in our business.
Tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, how did you create these procedures? How many do you have? How do you update them? Tell me a little bit more.
So right now what we're doing, and I'll be, so what we're doing is we're visualizing the business as I'll tell you what we were doing. What we were doing, frankly, I'm not even that clear on what we were doing because I wasn't doing it. Just be completely transparent. What it allowed us to, I'll tell you in general, but this is, it's like horrible. It's your business, bro. So here's what we did. Our current director of media started out as a media buyer. So junior, middle position to senior position. Our current chief operating officer started out as an account manager. When we implemented standard operating procedures, what we looked at is what is our fulfillment engine and how do we ensure that everyone knows their job? So when the person who became our first chief operating officer, we all had a team offsite in Vegas, the whole US team, and we talked about the business. And him and I sat down at Park MGM over like coffee at Italy. We're like, all right, when a request for proposal comes in, what do we do? And I was like, okay, you do this and this and this. He takes all the notes. Okay, when the ad buy starts, what do we do? Well, we need to have the pre-buy like process, the setup process, which would be akin to like the pre-launch process on an airplane flight. What are the check boxes there? Okay, you need to check pixels. You need to make sure we have creative. Is the creative in spec? All those things. Then you launch the campaign. Okay, cool. What does launching a campaign mean? Well, it means you make sure you're pacing. Are you actually spending? Like, is your audience the right size? Can you actually spend the money that you said you can spend? Are all the channels live? Are any ads disapproved? Are we seeing the right performance? By the way, check the pixels again. Make sure the pixels are tracking leads and sales. So all the things that I was doing, like I knew innately because I'd been doing this at the time for like 17, 18 years. Or not 18 because it's been 20 now, like probably like 15, 16 years. I was like, okay, I got to spill out onto the paper, on the piece of paper. And then we had a team and they were like, all right, do this. And then we had our chief operating officer make sure that the thing was happening the way it should have been happening. And still to this day, one of the most important things we do is when things fall off the rails, because eventually they do in some small cases. Why are they falling off the rails? What's actually happening? So we have a debrief form because I want to understand the nugget that of movement or action or communication that could have avoided all of the mess. And when we're talking about messes, we're talking about, hey, we didn't communicate that one creative was off. And it's off because we were seeing performance better on other ads. Well, did we not communicate that creative was off? No, we didn't. Oh, well, duh. We got to communicate that. Why didn't we communicate that? Oh, it comes to find out that, the client canceled 4 meetings, one after the other, and we just never got a chance to communicate. Okay, but still, why didn't we put that in writing? We were gonna, but usually we talk to a client about this on the calls. Well, duh, put it in writing. Like that's our process for everything. Why wasn't our process for this one client? That's the type of stuff that we think about. So we go really deep on relatively small things before they become institutional problems.
And do you find that once you have all these procedures, do you find that delegation becomes easier?
I think enforcement is critical. I hated process, right? Because one of the transitions between being an employee and being an entrepreneur is there was a point in my career where I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like there's a lot of things I'm not good at. Like I had to become better at talking in meetings and being more effective in meetings, especially when I was 29 years old and I was talking to people who had been in advertising like longer than I'd been alive. Right? I felt very uncomfortable in those meetings because I felt that they were so much smarter than me. So there were things that I was not good at, but at some point I got good at them. But the one thing I knew, like the back of my hand, you could wake me up at 2 a.m. and I could talk about it out of sleep, was programmatic advertising, the intricacies of buying advertising space with data, And so I knew how to run these campaigns because I was actively doing them before I hired people. So I just thought everybody worked that way. I thought everybody had that operating process in their brain. And it was difficult to get that information out of my brain and into a set of processes. So what makes it successful, like what keeps it going, is the enforcement of it. Once you have the enforcement, levels of redundancy. So a big part of our success is we hire senior people who understand the business overall. But secondly, we have multiple layers of redundancy. Peers check their work. Supervisors check their work. The director checks the supervisors. The account manager looks for holistic overall performance or an advocate for the advertiser inside the business. So we have levels of redundancy that create enforcement. So to answer your question, I'm not doing ad buying anymore. Delegation is absolutely what needs to happen, because with the volume of clients that we have and the volume of campaigns that we're running, I can only make a mess, because I'm also thinking about invoicing and cash flow and marketing. Hey, that's cool. I'm thinking about all of these different elements to the business that we've discovered that I was the bottleneck. The minute I had my hands on something, the other team was like, "Oh, Robert, he's going to do it." And it's like, no, Robert's not going to do it. He's just going to jump in and out and create chaos. So I stopped doing all that. So now I focus on marketing, sales, and other things. But operationally, it's not me anymore.
And that's what I keep hearing, right? Is quite often the job of the CEO is to go out there and sell the company, find new clients. Is that what you find most of your time doing?
That's 100%. Yeah, I'd say probably like 70% of my time is doing that, and 30% of my time is looking at money, cash flow, and that probably like 20% of my time is that, and probably 10% is miscellaneous on like things that come up every now and again.
Let's talk a little bit more about the client side of advertising. I always wondered, like, if there's a small business and they're just kind of new, they're just getting off the ground, how much should they budget for marketing and advertising?
It 100% depends on like 10 or 15 different factors. There's no real number. What I'll tell you is, if you're spending more than $1,500 a month in marketing and advertising, you should be working with us, because you're going to get millions of dollars worth of value, team thinking, strategy, etc., for $1,500 a month. And the reason I say that is because, look, the challenge for advertising and marketing is that everyone, their mother, can start an advertising agency. Literally all you need is a computer, an internet connection, and a Facebook account, and voila, you can sell Facebook ads. But you don't have experience. And so, or you do have experience, but you don't have redundancy and no standard operating procedure and no one holding you accountable. Like, there's all these kind of like different things. So how much you should spend, I'll give you a framework for how much advertisers should spend. Number one, do you have the cash flow for it? If you spend whatever number you have, assume it does nothing for you over the course of 6 months. You cool with it? You cool if you just do nothing, like that money just doesn't return anything? Are you good with that? The second component would be, not to say that happens, but you have to be okay, because if you're not okay with it, it's kind of like when you buy something. Like if I were to buy like a really nice car, like a Tesla, like a $100,000 Tesla, I'd be so scared to drive that thing. Partially because I'm not a car person to begin with. But like, let's say shoes. I think a better example of shoes, because Tesla, I could afford it. Let's say like I have a neighbor who bought Gucci shoes. Like, I've never bought Gucci shoes, but he bought Gucci shoes. He's like, I never wear these things because I'm always worried about getting them dirty. Like, that to me says it's too precious for you. Like, if I'm going to buy Gucci shoes, I'm cool buying 7 of them, which is why I don't buy Gucci shoes. I buy Nikes, and I go through them, and they're glorious. They get messy, and I buy a new pair, right? So you have to be okay. Like, it can't be like your last dollar, your Hail Mary attempt. None of that is good for you or for your business. You need that for cash flow. The second component is, do you have product market fit? Meaning, do people want what you have? Like, do you know how to talk about your business in ways that people will spend money with you? And when I say talk, I mean, it could be B2B talking. It could be social media talking. It could be ads talking, marketing on social media, whatever the case is. Do you know how to communicate about your business that results in sales? And then you have an idea of whether or not you should even advertise. And then you make a determination of what your budget is. It could be $1,500 a month. It could be $2 million a month. It just depends on the business.
And right now, what is your ideal client look like? Like, in terms of size, company size, revenue, the types of industries, product, et cetera. What is the ideal client you're looking for?
So we have 3 ideal client types, personas or avatars. Agencies that have anywhere from 5 to 100 people. They do creative work primarily or strategy, but they don't do media buying. Yet they understand the value of media buying because it creates a new revenue stream for them. It creates closer client relationships, right? Because the thing about agency work is, if you do just creative, chances are your client is also talking to an ad buying agency as well. And chances are that ad buying agency also does creative. So you're inviting competitors in, and you have competition that you can avoid by working with us. That's number one. Number two, we work with businesses, usually smaller businesses, because we don't actively reach out to them. They get referred to us. Smaller businesses, I don't know revenue size, but I know they're usually spending between $5,000 and $100,000 a month. And then we have a course that's running, which is an agency acceleration course. I'm really passionate about growing agencies for a couple reasons. It's just what I know how to do well, and I just really enjoy those conversations. So any like media seller who's wanting to like not have to work for someone else and jump jobs every 18 months, be your own agency, and it'll be a massive shift in how you go to the market, and the opportunities and the freedom you get. So we have a course that basically tells you like exactly how to start an agency and be profitable with an agency based on everything I've learned over the last 20 years. Also, that course is good for people who don't have much experience at all, but they're passionate about advertising. Same applies. We can help them not make bad decisions with their agency business.
How much does the course cost, and how long does it take to complete?
So course it's an ongoing course. It's monthly. It's $49.99 per month. And it's basically like the value, and the reason why people stay with us is because weekly calls with me. So we can answer questions in real time and have a repository of information there.
Robert, how is AI transforming your business and your industry?
AI is great. Comes from creative development. But we still do creative development. We just don't go to market with that because we don't want to necessarily compete with our clients, even though they're, our clients are like 100% creative people, and we're not 100, we're almost not no creative people, but we just don't want to even talk about that. So we don't really go to market as creative. But when clients ask us to do creative, we've built a copywriting bot that we use that takes the place of a copywriter, and we pass along the fees to we pass along the savings, so we lower our costs essentially to our clients who need creative work. And what that really means is it has a way to scrape the advertiser's website to understand how the business is talking about itself, so the language remains sort of common across its ads. It also understands ad specifications for Google, for Facebook, all the major platforms. And it asks a series of questions to help it refine the type of ad that it writes for you. And then finally, it has proven frameworks, copywriting frameworks that have been established over the years. So all that, you just type in a set of queries, and in like 2 minutes, you get 50 different ads. It still has to be curated, though. That's our like value add in this equation. Like, just because AI says something doesn't mean it's good. So we curate it, but it speeds up the process. And one of the trends in advertising is using creative to really like hone in on the audience. So the old way of doing advertising on Meta, et cetera, is by targeting keywords and interests, lookalikes, and retargeting. It's very granular data targeting. The sort of more common way now is to develop have a continual creative cycle, like every month create ads and upload those ads and give the algorithm the ability to ascertain which ad is the most relevant to the marketplace. So this AI copywriting helps fill that gap of just constant new ads going out into the marketplace.
That's fascinating. So basically, you're updating the ads every month, and you're letting the AI algorithm find out like the best way to get maximum reach.
Yeah, we're using like Meta's algorithm, 10 or 20 years of data, machine learning algorithm to find your customer. So in practice, we are training Meta on a per ad account basis to find your best customers.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more question for you, Robert, before we wrap up this discussion. Quickly, I know a lot of full-time employees, they go to work, they have a W-2, they got a 401k, the magic 401k is going to take care of their retirement and their financial planning. And so they get into this very passive way to think about their finances, especially their retirement finances. When you become an entrepreneur, all that kind of changes, right? As you made that shift to becoming an entrepreneur, how did that change your view on personal finances, retirement finances, and retirement planning?
There's definitely advantages to being an entrepreneur. You actually can. I'm not a financial advisor or anything, so I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure this is what happened. Like you can actually save more for your retirement as an entrepreneur than as an employee, I think.
And are you still doing the same kind of thing, was where you're putting money into a 401k/IRA or something like that?
Yeah, like retirement accounts. I don't know the intricacies. Like I have a CPA. Just everything that I don't know, I just hire out for. But like fundamentally, it's end of the year. If you want to contribute to an account, as long as you didn't pay your taxes yet for the year, you can contribute. I think until April. Not a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Talk to your CPA. But like, yeah, you can contribute, and I believe it's more money than you can contribute. It's like different types of accounts, though. I don't think it's a 401k. I think it's a different type of retirement account for entrepreneurs.
And in terms of the health insurance, when you became a full-time entrepreneur, were you surprised at all in how affordable or inaffordable health insurance was, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I didn't really deal with it. My wife was working at Boston Consulting Group, so we had health insurance through her. We had our child. She left. I think we may have had a year or so of like general open market healthcare, and then we got healthcare for our business. And then you're back to corporate, like not corporate healthcare, but business provided healthcare. It's interesting. There are companies, I don't know what it's called, PEOs, or these companies that like you get really good rates, healthcare rates, for example, because technically you're part of another larger negotiation entity called a PEO. I don't know about any of this. All I'll tell you in practice is that we have good health insurance. I'm happy with it. It's covered what we've needed. Knock on wood. And I leave all that stuff to other people. I'm just here to I'm like a shark. I like, and I that sounds silly, but like I like moving forward. I don't like looking at the back. I hate reconciling things. Like I just want to create. I want to move forward. I want to meet new people. So all this other stuff of health insurance and healthcare, and other people deal with it.
So on that topic, what is your goal for the next 5 years?
Create a business that is a good lifestyle business. I'm not here to create $100 million company because I don't want to give up what I need to give up in order to create a $100 million company. Like I want a business where my employees are happy to be working here, where I'm happy to enjoy the business and be creative the way I want to be creative. I'm looking for lack of stress. That's what I'm looking for. I still want to continue to grow the business, but I have a 5-year-old child. I have a wife. Like I want to go to 40 Dodgers games a year. Like I really want the life. I really want that life. Right? Because we start a business, we need to figure out why we're starting it, and the goals change. I started the business because I wanted to work I just wanted to stay working in advertising, make money, prove that prove out the chip on my shoulder, because people are like, you can't do it and you're not good at it, blah blah blah. Like I proved it. One of the Inc. 5000 and Financial Times 500. I proved it. I'm fine. Now my goals have shifted, so I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to know yourself and what you're actually trying to accomplish.
I love that answer. Yeah. And you're right. It is at the end of the day about lifestyle. Are you happy with what you're doing? Are you happy with your overall balance and the various different responsibilities you have in your life? And are you doing what you want to do? And are you enjoying it? And that's what it has to be yes, there are some tough periods when you got to work more than you want to, or you get less sleep than you want to, or you have more stress than you planned for. But in the end, it has to work out.
Exactly.
Robert, where can people reach out to you and where can they learn more about Brill Media?
Yeah, so brillmedia.co, B as in boy, RILL media.co. There's a start now button if you want to have a strategy conversation about your marketing and advertising. Reach out.
Love it. I'll put those links into the show notes. Robert Brill, thank you very much for your time today. Really enjoyed the talk.
Thanks, Gabe.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money Seed Podcast. Please remember to click like and subscribe. It really helps spread the message to other investors, and it helps attract new viewers to the show. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much.